So what angle should we sharpen our knives at? And when we say angle, what we're talking about, let's say this was our cutaway of our knife. Remember, if we cut the knife like this is what it would look like. Well, the angle we're talking about is this angle here, which is shown as alpha. Here's the angle between this line and this bevel. That's the angle we're talking about, shown here as alpha. It's the angle that we sharpen at. And if you sharpen, notice that it is the angle that I hold the knife at that establishes this bevel right here. It's the angle between the vertical and the polished edge. And it boils down to the angle that I hold the knife at. So it'll be the angle from the horizontal stone to the angle of my knife. That's the angle we're talking about. So what's a good angle to use for a kitchen knife? A kitchen knife is about 20 degrees. Generally speaking, sushi chefs will go down to like 17 degrees. Now, why wouldn't you go really tight angle? It'll be very, very sharp. So if I was to make this angle very small, the knife would be very, very sharp initially, but it wouldn't last very long. So 20 degrees is a good compromise. It stays sharp long time, and it's not too blunt. If you go with a bigger angle, it tends to be more blunt. It doesn't cut as easily. So 20 degrees is about right. If you're doing it by hand, you're going to be plus or minus a degree or two. All right? So that's the degrees. I've got a chart here that shows you what you use for different types of tools. So if 20 degrees is the angle that we're looking for in order to sharpen our knives, how do we find 20 degrees? Well, we could go get a protractor and cut a piece of paper and get the exact degrees. But there is a better way, or an easy way, that your mind is sort of built for. Your mind is really good at dividing things in half. Dividing things in threes is hard, but dividing things just in half is actually something your mind is good at. So if I have a knife and I stand it straight up, I've got 90 degrees. And if I was to just cut the angle in half, that's about 45 degrees. 90, 45. Your mind's actually pretty good at that. So once you got 45, then you cut that in half again. 45, 90, 45, 22 and a half degrees roughly. Obviously it's a guess, but it's close to 22 and a half degrees. And we're shooting for 20, so it's right about there, right in that range. That's a 20 degree bevel, right there. So I have this, I stand it vertically, I cut it in half, I get 45. Half again, I get 20, 22 degrees, right in there. And that's how I can establish the 20 degree angle I'm looking for. Hope that helps. So how do I hold my knife in order to get the angle through the whole path? I want to establish this 20 degree bevel, and I want to hold it all the way through my stroke. I hold it like this, and I get a good grip on it. If I hold it like this, it's going to be very hard. My wrist is going to be tweaked. If you hold it like this, you're going to establish, and I use my fingers to also guide it and provide some pressure. If I just went like this, I can do it, but it's a lot harder to control. If I use my fingers, I can now establish some good control of the blade. And it's going to be a little bit different angle here than here because the knife's not straight. So you position your body and practice. This is what you need to practice, is this motion and maintaining a consistent angle on every pass. That's the key. Consistency is the key. Well, how hard do I press? Well, I don't press as hard as I can, and I don't just lightly touch it. I'm somewhere in between. The idea is if I push harder, I'm going to polish faster, right? but it's not going to be quite as fine. So it's kind of a feel. It doesn't take a lot of pressure, just enough to get a good grinding. Like, well, that doesn't help me much, Gerald. Super light would be if I held it like this and I push down. It's just going to take a lot longer the lighter I go. The harder I go, it's going to be faster, up to a point where it will also tend to push the steel out and I won't be able to get quite as fine of an edge. I do get a little bit of bending of the steel if I push too hard. So I want to get firm pressure, but not too hard. How firm? What would that be? Maybe 5 to 10 pounds of pressure on it. Somewhere in there. Coming back the other way, now I have to change my hand. I like to go like this. I could change my body, but it's really just what feels comfortable to you and how do you keep the angle consistent through the whole path. And that's really, it's all about just being consistent and just work at it. Some sushi chefs I've seen will actually go lengthways like this. Especially with the very long Japanese sushi knives, and they'll go like this. And it gives you a nice long path, but in my opinion, it's very hard to maintain that angle this way, and you tend to gouge the knife, or gouge the stone when you go lengthways. I find it to be easier to be consistent like this, for me. You just need to develop whatever feels comfortable for you. You can also come straight this way. Another technique. You might have a guide that puts on here, and you have to move the guide. The problem with the guide is it's really good for a specific size knife, but if you change the size of your knife, you change the angle. It's better to just spend a little bit of time and develop a feel for the angle, and then you'll never need any guides. You just need a stone and some water.